Last week on February 25th, Tesla released full self-driving in China. While they weren't allowed to call it FSD, but instead navigation on Autopilot, is the same software that we use here in the US with just some small modifications. This release has gone viral in China with hundreds of FSD drivers showing off videos. Today we'll watch a number of these videos. You can see for yourself how it performs in city roads and unmarked mountain roads, how it compares to Huawei's system, and the reactions by users. In other news, there are signs Tesla might be releasing FSD Supervised in Australia soon. When this happens, just a blink of an eye, FSD would now be available in China, US, Canada, Mexico, and Australia. I got Brian White joining us. Brian is a host of his YouTube channel called FutureAza. Welcome, Brian.
What a great topic. This is so exciting. This is what we've been waiting for a long time. A lot of the skeptics and doubters and haters said it would never, ever happen. And then, of course, like powered flight, it just did. So
it just does.
It just works.
It just works. So FSD has been released in China. We've given it about a week, and every day there are just videos after videos being dropped. It's gone viral. The very first day, even Ashokal Swami pointed out that in Douyin, which is TikTok in China, it's gone at least 1.3 billion views. So lots of people came at me the very first week and said, "Oh, you're clickbait. It's not FSD. It's not been approved in China. You're clickbait." It was regulatory approved in China. China's not announced it, but you cannot release this without China, getting their approval. In fact, Tesla themselves has said that it would only be delivered in China and in Europe with regulatory approval. 2, they're not allowed to call it full self-driving, but it is very much the same software stack, and they might have curtailed it a bit, but it's not a completely different branch.
So let's look at what we can see, and what we can see from the videos. If you folks haven't watched the videos, I assume we're going to play some here in a minute. It behaves like FSD. It does all the things that FSD does. I don't know what reductions in capacity. I don't see any. I don't see anything that's been removed. What's been changed is the title. Just the name. People complained, "Oh my gosh, how dare you call it something so confusing?" Fine, we'll call it something else. "How dare you change the name?" Look, if it's impossible to please you, at some point, people are going to stop trying, and that's where we're at. If you cannot acknowledge that Tesla does some things right, you are not part of this conversation, and you're not welcome.
Yeah, it's called navigation on Autopilot. But here's a sign that they really did want to call it FSD. And what we saw here is a patent application, and they're registering Tesla FSD as a graphic trademark. So this is just an example of, the current trademark status is pending substantive examination. So,
yeah, great. And this is what we want. Maybe they will begin using that when it goes unsupervised, but at the very least, they're locking it down so someone else can't use it.
There you go. All right, let's get through. We'll watch a number of videos. Obviously, these are anecdotal. These are one-off videos here and there, but you have to start to collect them and get the general sentiment as we move along. But there's hundreds of these videos being posted now. This is Ray for Tesla, says a member in his chat group shared his initial experience with FSD. He just downloaded version 13.2.6 after returning back to China before he took several test drives with FSD Engage and accumulated over 100 kilometers FSD mileage. He is so impressed by the flawless zero disengagement or zero intervention drives. He invited his friend, a Xiaopeng X9 owner, to test it as well. The friend uses Xiaopeng's latest NGP autonomous driving system all the time. Obviously, he's very savvy ADAS observer in China. After the test drive, his verdict is FSD is invincible. The foundational capabilities of FSD are far better than those of other systems in China. Let that sink in. So I'm going to play that as we're talking. But, this is a common theme. We're actually watching people who are using the different Chinese systems out there, Huawei, in this case, Xiaopeng, and even this guy who was, considered to be somebody who was anti-vision only. And he was now saying that this is pretty impressive what FSD is able to do.
He's saying it's better than, as good as, or better than anything else out there. So it is true that you cannot watch 5 videos or 10 videos or even 100 videos and fully understand the limitations yourself. But what I'm looking at is how does this compare to my experience on FSD? And what I'm seeing is it behaves the same. It drives just as good. There are videos in well-marked roads, in non-marked roads, dirt roads, pavement, nighttime, daytime, in the rain, not, you know, on dry, sunny days. It is a variety of environments, some of them very crowded, and it behaves as I would want it to. I've only seen a handful of videos in super dense urban environments, and it behaved the way I would, but I'm not sure that that's the way they would. So that's something I would need more information on.
Yeah, exactly. It still needs to learn signs and rules of the road and so forth, but it is very impressive now, just the first drop. So we've got, you know, Elon Musk replying to that saying, that's cool. That's great to hear. Now, Ray also shared one of the complaints. He said one of the main complaints some FSD testers in China made is that the system's too cautious and courteous. You know, I don't know. Let's see. But some are saying that this is just normal behavior, right? They obviously in China, they might, or not obviously, but they might want to be more aggressive in their driving because it's busier. But this is what FSD does. Or it could also be that the first iteration, right? Sometimes they release something and they want it to be more cautious and courteous at the beginning, and then they loosen the reins as we move on. In order to navigate through chaotic traffic, most Chinese drivers are assertive when they're in multi-lane roundabouts, narrow streets, and intersections where everybody forces his or her way out. Yielding to others may get you stuck in traffic. That kind of behavior is socially acceptable. Nobody criticizes it. So it's like a New Yorker. Yeah, got to get in there. If you don't, you're stuck. In this clip, you'll find Tesla with FSD waited too long for the gap to turn right into a neighborhood because there was endless traffic flow of mopeds from the bike lane on the right. During the whole wait time, however, 3 other vehicles successfully made right turn by negotiating with moped operators, right? Get in there. It says, screw you. Well, video clips like this feed into bad behavior of FSD after training. Each country is different and FSD needs to adapt. That's the old saying goes, when in Rome, do as Romans do. So this is...
这个掉头我觉得还是挺适合。
So
I'm playing it a little bit so you can hear that they're actually narrating. But
so with this, I'm with you on this. For an initial release, you'd like it to be dead on the aggressive scale, exactly where it needs to be.
Like this guy, yeah.
Yeah, like that guy. But you have to err on one side. And I would prefer an initial release to err on the side of caution. This driver is free to tap the accelerator if they see a gap that they like, and that would train the system a bit. At least it's designed to. Yeah, there's a third car going through, and I think it would, if you're not willing to goose it a little and say, let's go, then I think the car is right to be hesitant, but I can see this is absolutely an endless stream of mopeds and pedestrians, and then it finally gets through. I'm okay with that for an initial release. I think that's fine. This is probably the most dense traffic I've seen it have to negotiate. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you completely, right? I think that it needs to learn how to drive in China, and that's what it's going to be doing over time. They have to give it videos. They have to train it a little bit more. That's what they already said that they needed to do.
And remember, every time you give it a mild intervention, whether it's applying the turn signal or goosing the accelerator a little, it does, at least in theory, train the system. And I imagine in a new market, they would be more inclined to gather that data and actually apply it.
Yeah, I like what you said, which is you can always press the gas pedal just to tell it to keep going forward. It's not the end of the world, right? Most important thing is safety. But yes, you cannot sit there too long. Otherwise,
you will live. This is your new home.
So it needs to learn. It needs to learn. Okay. But I want to also show that there's other videos showing that FSD it can be aggressive. In fact, here in the US, right, I like to use hurry mode. And my wife does not like me using hurry mode. So I put it on standard. She still doesn't like standard. She likes to be on chill. So when she's in the car, I move it to chill. But I want it to be aggressively changing lanes to get to the right lane and so forth, right? Here's again where are we now?
If you're using FSD and you have not played around with hurry, standard, and chill, please do that. Because the other day I was driving on the highway and my car was being kind of aggressive. And I'm like, what mode am I? Oh, you know what? I am in hurry. Let me adjust that. And for me, standard is where I like it, but I can see why others would want, I can see why you would want hurry, and I can see why someone else might want chill.
You see that biker,
that was said, good.
Hey, I need to get in there. I'm going to get in there. And that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly
I can
normal.
see from the trajectory that I can tuck right behind you, and it did it. And I've seen people make very weird claims about, well, the vehicle, because it doesn't have LiDAR, cannot accurately determine the trajectory and of other vehicles. No, guy, my brain isn't doing the math either. I just understand it. So it's, yeah, the people who said you need LiDAR don't know that you need LiDAR or don't. So it's
look at this.
Yeah.
It's a bus. And then
cross the yellow.
And there's bikes everywhere. Bikes everywhere. Like, and they, of course, bikers will go wherever they need to go, right? They're not necessarily
right. They're not going to end up blocking traffic.
This is crazy. Look at this. You know,
that's
obviously,
aggressive.
but
I like
but
it.
this car knows that this one is still, it's not parked, right? There's a pedestrian crossing. You got these cars crossing right across the pedestrian crossing.
Yeah.
This is fair. This is fine.
If you don't, you will, that bus is not moving anytime soon.
Yeah.
But
it knew
done.
it.
You made it.
Yeah.
Yes. That's very exciting to see. And again, going back to what I said before, this mirrors my experience here. Now, I don't keep it on the most aggressive settings, but I've had delivery vans parked blocking the road, and the car will slow down, nudge over to the left, pass them. It'll cross the yellow line, pass them when it is safe to do so. And that's very human behavior. I can't tell you how many times now I'll be on the highway and think, boy, you know what? I'm going to initiate a lane. Oh, nope, it's changing lanes on its own. Yeah. Perfect. Absolutely perfect.
So good news so far. Okay. I think what we're hearing from China is people are very impressed. Very impressed. That's the first week. We'll see, but you know, no knock on wood, right? No bad news.
Right.
So we're seeing it navigate in the busy streets of China, right? We've had several CEOs, Chinese automakers who make full self-driving, their version of autonomy there. They came to the US, tested Tesla's FSD, and what they said was very impressed, but China's different market. It's very busy.
It was this
have knowledge, right? Remember that? Yeah.
Yeah, the CEO of Xiaomi came to Los Angeles, which to experience FSD himself. And I thought, California, that's weird. I was just sure he'd pick Missouri. It's the Xiaomi state. But there's
yes.
Right. Thank you. But the other thing we have to look at, though, is the financials. There's two aspects to this: revenue recognition. Anyone who has bought this, we're now going to count a big chunk of that revenue as booked. And the second is new revenue. New revenue will show up because of this. People will want it. There are a lot of people who have always wanted it, but would not buy it until it is actually available. And those people can now buy it. And a big, big chunk of that revenue can be counted on day one.
And it's going viral and people are saying very positive things. So here's Tesla, FSD, working in the busy streets of China. Now, here's where it really differentiates them from any other autonomous solution out there, which is not in the city streets, dirt mountain roads. This particular video here went viral. This one is like at least 25, 30 million views, something like that at this point. And I don't know what has happened in China, of course. That's what matters too. But I'm going to turn off the music. You sped it up. But basically, it's driving.
That's not a road. That looks like a driveway.
Yeah. Dirt mountain roads in China. And it's able to do it.
Wow.
You know, that's where you're taking. This is the thing, too. This is what people don't forget or completely ignore. When you see these videos of Tesla, they're testing it everywhere. Everywhere that they're allowed to go drive it, they're going to drive it. And all the other competitors, they're stuck within certain geographies. And that's it.
Yes.
So,
and we are a curious people. We will test things to the limit. As a kid, when we got, our first computers, we would always test them to try and see what was happening with it, and if we could push the limits and make it break. And of course, we found the limits, and of course, we were able to break it. But yeah, boy, the fact that this can work everywhere. And when you say this has 25 million views, it has 25 million views on a US site. That doesn't, on the Chinese site, it must have.
It could be
more.
bigger. Yeah.
It could be
For
much
sure.
bigger.
That's a good point. So here's another one. Many of these sites are obviously in China that are now reporting it into X so that we can see it. He goes, you might not want to miss this. Tesla FSD on the toughest 180-degree mountain road in Chongqing, China at dark night in the areas without traffic rules. FSD reigns supreme. Let's take a look at this one. Yeah.
哎，前面又来了一个车，哦，这个真的是没办法的呀。
And while I don't speak
我
Chinese,
靠，这也能
the
会车？
videos I've
我靠，
seen,
这个弯儿，我靠。
that's the same
能行吗？
tone that I use when it does something insane.
Oh my God. Oh, yeah, you could hear it. You could hear it.
Gotta be kidding me.
我靠，会车，转弯会车，我靠。
That is my joy as well.
我靠，我靠，
I'm short.
我靠，
I'm
我
so
紧
short,
张
I'm scared.
害怕。
Yeah.
Isn't that great?
And are you telling me that this is too easy of a driving situation? No, the roads are sufficiently sharp that a car can barely navigate the corners under full control. Yeah, it's crazy.
I saw another one. I didn't clip it, but this guy was so afraid to go down this one particular road because there's it's lined with trees on both sides and branches are coming really close. And so you need to drive very closely. The car apparently navigated very well. It saw the branches. It was very able to navigate that. So let's watch it against Huawei, right? So everybody says Huawei is the best. You did a video where on your channel, and you showed how, or is it out of spec, right?
Yes.
And he
Kyle from
did a
Out of
video.
Spec.
Kyle from Out of Spec tested Huawei. That went viral. That video, as well as yours, that you interviewed him. Huawei's fantastic system, one of the best in China. It does really, really well. So everybody's very curious. How does full self-driving compare to Huawei? And this is translated, thank you to Rebellionaire, summarized from an original Chinese test. Smooth handling, cautious overtakes, and a few quirks. Is Tesla pulling ahead in autonomy, or there's still work to do? So let's listen into to what they said. We're going to play this because he actually did translate it to an English speaker.
Let's get right into it. This is the mountain road where Huawei's system struggled with cornering. First, we have a right turn. With Huawei, there was a beep 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 warning here. Tesla makes the first turn smoothly. Now let's see how it handles a larger turn. The speed has dropped to 43 kilometers per hour, which is a bit slow. Maybe because of the speed bump ahead? Yes, it seems Tesla slows down whenever it detects a speed bump. Every time it sees one, it decelerates significantly. Honestly, that's a bit excessive. As human drivers, we wouldn't slow down this much for every speed bump.
Maybe you would.
Look,
but
here's another
I
one.
would.
Tesla slows down again. It recognizes the speed bumps very well, which is impressive, but it affects driving efficiency. So while this is impressive in a way, it does slow things down too much.
Goose it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I assume later versions, or even if you put it in hurry mode, might tone down that behavior a bit.
As far as I know, only Tesla does this. Other vehicles don't seem to detect speed bumps in this manner.
Oh.
Now, why isn't it speeding up? Is it because of that electric scooter ahead? Not
And the
sure.
curve.
If it's only slowing down because of the scooter and doesn't overtake, then we may have to stop and wait for it to move.
Well, I think once it straightens
Let's
out,
keep
I'm
going
gonna
for a
guess
bit, since this
that it
section
will
is a straight road.
pass. Oh, yeah. I feel like in order to overtake that motorcycle, you would need to
Right
go
now, it's
too
following the
fast.
scooter very slowly and isn't overtaking.
I
That's a
wouldn't
downside.
overtake. Are you kidding me?
There are no
I
lane
would-
markings
Are you
on this
kidding me?
road, and up
I'm
ahead
so
is
glad
a
it's
very
not-
sharp turn.
In order to
one that
overtake,
Huawei
you would need to
struggled
go too fast.
And also look at it. Sorry, I'm not going to overtake. This is not the right time to overtake. I mean, you're aggressive, but safety first, dude.
Tesla
Right.
still isn't attempting to overtake the scooter. Let's give it some accelerator input and see if it will overtake.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, once we manually press the accelerator,
Like you've
it
been saying,
overtakes.
oh my God.
And suddenly, there's an
And that's why you don't want it to do it.
Smoothly yields to let it pass.
Which is
Now, even though
fine.
pressing the accelerator makes Tesla overtake, I consider this an intervention. Some people argue that pressing the accelerator doesn't count as an intervention, and that this is
I believe it
human.
does count.
I don't think it counts.
No, it's not a
ridiculous.
disengagement, but it is user
It's
input.
an intervention. Yeah, it's an intervention, but not a disengagement.
Right.
Come on. The car was doing perfect.
Yes.
Was
If it had
exactly-
overtaken without that input, I would feel that it was too aggressive. But it's a
That's
matter of
exactly
taste.
the point, right? Yeah, exactly. No matter what it did, whoever's driving would have said, no, bad. But okay,
Right.
that was perfectly done, but just shows you, and it's a long video, 6 minutes long, comparing the two.
So let me ask you, now that we've seen how Tesla's FSD can adapt in countries where there is limited capacity to gather data, limited capacity to compute the data, how are you feeling about a wider rollout? Globally?
Exactly.
Mexico,
I think that's
Canada, of course.
I think that's the point you just made, right? Which is, if it can do it in China, you can just drop it in China, and it's performing so well. And of course, it still needs to learn, but it's performing so well for safety wise. You should be able to drop this anywhere as soon as they agreed. At this point, just do it. Now, it could be that they trained it in China before they dropped it in China, which is more likely, right? So
Sure.
Sure. But people are saying
they've been training it in every market that it exists.
Yeah.
They've
They're
been
saying
training
the way
it
that
in
they-
markets where Tesla doesn't have a presence, an official presence.
Yeah. What they're saying is that the way that they train in China is by training it in Singapore and Taiwan and Vietnam and in these countries. And as they trained it there, got the data, that's how it learned how to drive, Asian country. So this is Huawei. Comparison of the far-leading Huawei and Tesla FSD on the same mountain road. Blogger says, I feel like I was cheated by Huawei. Its performance on this road is simply horrible. Its takeover rate is too scary. Look at Tesla. Has it ever taken over a car? Tesla is also ahead in the speed bump recognition. Huawei's autonomous driving went on strike when it encountered the speed bump, so I had to take over.
感觉被这个华为诈骗了，他就是往这条路开的。
Yeah, I'm going to pause, stop that so it's not so loud. But, they're testing it. They're comparing it head to head. Here's another one where this is a 50-minute drive, and flawless. 0 disengagements. 50 minutes. And you can see that I'm going to take off the music. Sorry. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
At first, I thought it didn't sound like music. But you could, oh my God, it even had like a gate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's another gate. Like if this isn't as diverse of a road and all the environments, 50 minutes of this.
It's diverse, but it is a quiet time of day, which gives it an edge. But if that's when you need to travel, now you've got a chauffeur. And we're not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm saying that this is at least as good as I possibly could have hoped for the first week in a new market with a radically different driving style. And there is a lot more traffic than I realized at first. This is still, in my town, this would be rush hour.
Yeah. Oh, this. If it can do this, that's all you're asking for. Like you've got the cars, but you also have these bikers. They're darting in and out. You got these buses. You got these different kinds of, exits, entrance, everything you can think of. Traffic stopping, and then you need to decide: am I going to go forward or not forward? Things just randomly in the middle. People walking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, this is fun to watch. So this was a 50-minute drive in Shenzhen, China, 0 disengagements. And then they tested it too. Collision safety test of Model 3 vehicle FSD in China. They did at nighttime, large backlight, 60 kilometers per hour, which is pretty fast. FSD enabled, encountering pedestrians crossing the street. So they're just testing it, right? Remember this, the old test comparisons here to see. And then there's a video tutorial. So they're actually dropping this now for every
FSD 智能辅助驾驶之旅。
So this is Tesla official, and they're teaching people how to use FSD. This is coming, they posted on Weibo, their Tesla account. So again, it's going viral. People are testing it. I think you're right. the amount of it's going to go high. Like the amount of people that are going to buy this is going to be very, very high.
Mm-hmm.
And it's showing that it's better than existing systems. This is it. We'll keep following this, right? Because we'll see in the next week or two if we discover things that their systems are better at, and they should be, because A, they've been there longer. B, they're using LiDAR, mapped roads. You know, you would expect that they're pretty flawless in these mapped areas, much better than Tesla until a certain distance. The real value is that this can go end to end, any location to any location.
Yes. And again, this is going to hit the financials. This is going to show up as recognized revenue and as new revenue. I don't know. I know you can purchase it in China. I do not know if you're also able to just subscribe to it. I imagine that's a thing, but I don't know that for sure. But it will be more revenue. And that's the beauty of the change in the business model. We remember it was a year and a half ago, Elon had said, look, if we have to sell cars at zero margin, we're still going to make more money than anyone else. And at the time, that wasn't true based on take rates, but it is becoming closer to true today.
Great sign. So this is China. That's FSD in China. Well, there's now signs that Tesla is going to be releasing this in Australia. And the way they know, thank you for Jason at TechAU. He posted this article updating the terminology to FSD Supervised. That seems to be like one signal that you start to see. Tesla owners in Australia have had the option to purchase FSD since 2019 when the model shipped with Hardware 3. At the time, the software update was called Full Self-Driving Package. New evidence shows that Tesla is getting closer to shipping FSD Supervised. That's available in US, Canada, Mexico, and more recently, I think you meant China here. Someone who purchased FSD back in May 2020, I've watched the progression of FSD Beta and then FSD Supervised. And then here it is where it's used to show that. So now you look at FSD in Australia, you'll see now it says Full Self-Driving Supervised. Brian, do you think that this is a sign that it's coming?
Absolutely. I believe it absolutely is. Australia's regulatory environment is not super prohibitive, but there are steps just like anywhere. And if you can make this work correctly in China and the US and Canada and Mexico, why can't you make it work in Australia? We've been seeing signs of this for about 6 months now. And the real big thing is, I mean, the challenge in a market like China is that drivers are very aggressive, where in Australia, the two big problems you have is you're driving on the other side of the road and you're driving upside down. I'm pretty sure that's how Australia works.
Yeah, that's right. That's how that Australia works.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is good news for Tesla because we were waiting for regulatory approval in China and they're using FSD. It looks like it could be curtailed a little bit. It might not be 100% exactly the same, but like you said at the beginning, you watch it drive city streets, able to do everything. It's unlikely to have been completely curtailed. And if it was, it's a temporary thing. And the reason why they didn't call it FSD is not because it's not full self-driving, but because of regulatory approval of what where you can name things. So
yes, I mean, that's exactly it. A rose by any other name, you know, it's still the same thing.
Yeah, well, watch closely. Thank you for joining me today, Brian. If you want to see that video that we talked about earlier, where Huawei is a fantastic system in China, they are great. You want to watch a car, be able to do these things. But again, that's one video in China. And now we're seeing hundreds of FSD compared to Huawei as well. And you can start seeing the differences. So yes, they're great. And you go to FutureAza at YouTube channel. That's Brian's channel. And he's got the interview with Out of Spec where they showed that Huawei video. Thank you, everybody. Talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.